Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Comprehensive Comic. My awakened substitute can develop dependence. Chapter 1. Chiba Prefecture, Lui District, second floor of the abnormal office. It was midday and a man with short black hair was sleeping, but his brows and eyes were furrowed. It was obvious that he had not had a good dream. Suddenly the man opened his eyes, and the confusion and turbidity in his eyes quickly faded, turning into as bright and gorgeous as the starry sky. If anyone else stares at these eyes for a long time, they are afraid that their minds will quickly sink and they will be unable to extricate themselves. I am grieving the death of my parents and awakening my past life memories. Nangong Yang patted his forehead. Vague memories kept emerging in his mind and became clearer. No wonder my mental consciousness has become so depressed and lethargic during this period. Nangong Yang, who was wearing pajamas, got out of bed and came to the bathroom sink. He held water in both hands and rinsed his face vigorously, then looked up at the man in the mirror. The man in the mirror has short black hair, fair skin, coordinated and handsome facial features, and a face as good as a crown jewel. The most unique thing is his eyes. What kind of eyes are they? It is as bright and gorgeous as the starry sky, as if a universe is contained in it. Are these my eyes? When did they become so strange? Is it the change caused by awakening the memory of the past life? It seems that not only are there changes in the eyes, but unknown changes are also taking place within the body. Nangong Yang touched his left eye with one hand and lamented the inexplicable changes after awakening his memory. Bululu, feeling the growl of his stomach, he decided to fill his stomach first. He went to the refrigerator in the kitchen, took out an unopened bag of toast and a bottle of milk, put them on the dining table, and started eating. Perhaps the changes in the body require a lot of energy, and the food is digested within a short time. Nangong Yang went to the refrigerator in the kitchen and took out all the edible things in it. I ate like this for another half an hour, eating enough food for 5 adults before I felt my body was full. My whole body relaxed inexplicably, the changes in my body seemed to be over, and the memories of my previous life no longer came out. I went to lie down on the sofa in the living room, started to think about and sort out the memories of my past life, and unconsciously fell asleep again. In the dream, Nangong Yang quickly experienced another life also called Nangong Yang. Born into an ordinary family in the countryside of Longguo, he had a happy childhood. Nangong Yang in the dream seems to have been exposed to the second dimension and novels in his youth and became a half-time homebody. As an adult, he became a novelist. Finally, when he was in his 30s, he went to a comic exhibition and bought a model of an insect arrow. I didn't notice the traffic light when I went back and was hit by a dump truck while crossing the road. What's the end of the world? Dump truck, do you want to be so bloody? Is the dump truck an artifact of time travel? Who will it hit? Nangong Yang woke up from the sofa and took a few deep breaths to calm down. After reincarnation, I am still a member of the Dragon Kingdom. This is worthy of celebration. Nangong Yang fell into deep thought. I feel that my personality has changed a bit. I am no longer as silent as before, but more active, more like myself in my previous life. Nangong Yang thought about it and ignored it. He came to the window and opened the curtains, and took a look at the world outside. The corners of his eyes twitched unconsciously. Nani, this world is too dangerous. There was no memory awakened before, and I didn't feel anything, but now the memory is awakened. Seeing all kinds of spirits and evil spirits wandering around outside, I got goosebumps all over my body. No wonder I was so taciturn after reincarnation. There is an evil spirit hiding in the trash can on the street below. When someone passes by or throws away garbage, it will roar out of it. It looks like an old evil spirit at first glance. Once you are frightened by him and let him know that you can see him, he will instantly burst out and bite and devour your life force. When the life force is finished, he will start to devour your soul. Before Nangong Yang awakened his memory, because his parents were high-level spiritual exterminators of the Dragon Kingdom, he was born with high-level yin and yang eyes. Because I was born to be able to see, I didn't feel scared. I just ignored it. I just treated it as invisible and left after a while. But now that I have awakened my memory and acquired some of my past life personalities, I am not afraid, but I still feel uncomfortable. And this seems to be the spirits and evil spirits in The Visible Miko. Nangong Yang has only watched the first few episodes of this show to know a little bit about the setting, and has not watched the rest. So I have traveled to the anime world. No, it should be the comic book world. I remember that the school was Chiba Sobu High School, and there was a female classmate named Yuigahama Yui in the class. Thinking of this, Nangong Yang's heart blossomed with joy. The time traveler came to the second dimension. Not only did he kill people randomly, but the harem and other things were opened. Ding dong ding dong. An anxious doorbell sounded from the office downstairs. Nangong Yang realized at this time that a customer came to the door, and he seemed quite anxious. After his parents passed away, Nangong Yang took over their abnormal firm, as well as a 100 million inheritance and a high-end apartment building, which was right next to the firm. I'm coming. Nangong Yang ran down without changing into his pajamas. The office on the first floor was relatively spacious and tidy. There is just a desk and a sofa, as well as a tea table and water dispenser. There is a clock hanging on the wall behind the sofa. The sofa faces the desk directly, and the tea table is in the middle, close to the sofa. The door of the office is a double-door bulletproof glass door, which my parents obtained through special channels from the military. Nangong Yang came downstairs and saw a long straight black girl through the bulletproof glass door. She was wearing casual clothes and a pleated skirt. She looked familiar. Without thinking much, I went straight over and opened the door. The girl with long, straight black hair outside the door has golden eyes, fair skin, and a slightly nervous and tired expression. She looks weak and easy to bully. She is anxiously waiting for the door to open. Come on, the door will open now. A pleasant sound came from the door, and a handsome young man in pajamas could be seen unlocking the door. Miss, come in. If you have anything to do, let's go in and talk about it slowly. As soon as Nangong Yang came out, he saw the anxious and tired look on the girl in front of him, and knew that he must have encountered something ghost, so he invited the girl in with a smile. The girl at the door saw Nangong Yang opening the door and was shocked by his appearance. Especially those eyes that were like stars in the universe. The girl fell in unconsciously and looked at Nangong Yang blankly. She was unconsciously taken to the sofa and sat down. Nangong Yang went to the water dispenser nearby and poured her a glass of water. Miss, take a rest here. I'll go up and change my clothes. I'll come down soon. Then he went upstairs. Yotsuya Miko finally realized what she was doing, and suddenly felt a heat on her cheeks. This is too foul, especially those eyes. Who wouldn't be confused after looking at them? No, you can't have random thoughts. That's too rude. I'm here to ask for help. Seeing a suggestion in his heart, Jonzi picked up the water on the table and drank it in one gulp, calmly. At this time, Nangong Yang had changed into a black jacket, a white shirt and black casual pants. With a height of 1.8 meters, he looks particularly tall and handsome among the generally short boys in Sakura country. Yotsuya Miko looked at Nangong Yang, who had changed his clothes and came out, and started bumping around again, but fortunately, the previous hint worked, and he didn't stare. Nangong Yang came to the sofa and sat down to chat with Mionzi. Hello, my name is Nangong Yang. You can just call me Nangong. How do you call this lady? My name is Yotsuya Miko, you can just call me Miko. After saying that, Yotsuya Miko began to regret, it was really too unreserved. How can I ask her to call her by her first name not long after meeting? Will it make her feel like a casual woman? Nangong Yang doesn't have any special feelings about this. After all, it's very casual to call him by his first name in Longguo. It's just that the name Yotsuya Miko sounds familiar. Oh, I remembered it. She is the heroine in Visible Miko. No wonder it looked familiar before. She is worthy of being an anime heroine. She is really beautiful. Okay, Miss Miko, did you encounter any unusual incident here? Let's take a look. Maybe I can analyze it for you. I'm very experienced in abnormal events. Speaking of abnormal events, Nangong Yang unconsciously thought of an abnormal event that his parents were dealing with because of a mistake. He was directly besieged by many evil spirits. Even if he finally escaped, he didn't have much vitality left. Not long after, his parents passed away a month ago. Normally, I would go along to deal with abnormal events, but I didn't go along that time, and something like this happened. I don't know whether it was lucky or unfortunate. Yotsuya Miko, listening to Nangong Yang's questions, began to explain what happened to him. I awakened my yin and yang eyes before school started, and I didn't tell my family and friends. I have been looking for ways to solve the problem. It cannot be said that some of the prayer beads I bought are useless, it can only be said that they are too weak to be effective. 2 days after school started, my friends and I accidentally entered a shrine deep in the mountains and forests. At first, he didn't care. He went up to worship and made a wish not to be harassed by evil spirits. 3 fox gods appeared from behind, 2 small humanoid fox boys wearing kimonos, and a huge beast-shaped fox god with bells tied to its body. One of them, a humanoid fox in a kimono, held out 3 fingers to me, meaning to protect me 3 times. Later, because of my laxity, the 3 times would be used up quickly. I wanted to go back and fulfill my wish, but I had a dream last night that I would be eaten by them. That dream is so real. I have a hunch that it must be true. The 3 fox gods in the dream will definitely find me. There was really no other way, so I looked for a solution online and finally found it here. After Yotsuya Miko explained her own affairs, she looked at Nangong Yang hopefully, hoping to give him a solution. It was actually the biggest crisis I had encountered in the month since I had awakened my yin and yang eyes. I was actually being cared about by the gods. And it is obvious that these 3 fox gods are not good people. If they are not prepared to fulfill their wishes, they may give themselves back. After hearing Janzi's explanation, Nangong Yang already had an idea in his mind and was ready to use his spiritual power to conduct an in-depth observation of Janzi. Gathering spiritual power into the yin and yang eyes to activate spiritual vision, but when gathering the spiritual power, I felt that there seemed to be some extra power in my body, and I was surprised. But let's first observe the problem on Yotsuya Miko's body. She saw that her body was wrapped with golden divine light. I saw that under the camouflage of the entwining golden divine light, there was a ghostly aura full of pure malice towards life. Obviously not a real god, but a ghost. And looking at the intensity of the ghostly aura covered up by the divine light, it was almost about to explode. Once this breaks out, the 3 fox ghosts and gods will use the location of the ghost energy explosion to come directly to you and devour you. Nangong Yang opened his spiritual vision and stared at Yotsuya Miko. I will explain what I saw to Yotsuya Miko through simple analysis and speculation. It may not be accurate, but there is a high probability that it will not be wrong. Yotsuya Miko listened to Nangong Yang's explanation and looked at Nangong Yang's eyes that became more beautiful after opening his spiritual vision. He didn't fall into intoxication again, he only felt his hands and feet were cold and his whole body was shaking. Yotsuya Miko was stunned for a while under this impact. If I hadn't found Nangong Yang's help, I might have been hit one day, and I don't know how. At this time, Yotsuya Miko looked up, her golden eyes staring straight at Nangong Yang, and tears began to accumulate in her eyes. Master Nangong, you must help me. I will give you any reward when the time comes. As long as you ask for it, I will be satisfied with whatever I can do. After saying that, he grabbed Nangong Yang's hand with both hands, as if he was afraid that he would run away. Nangong Yang, who turned off his spiritual vision, stretched out his hand behind Yotsuya Miko's back to comfort her. Miss Mionzi, don't worry, I didn't say I couldn't solve this matter. It's just about how to negotiate the remuneration. After all, these 3 ghosts and gods are not easy to deal with. The corners of Nangong Yang's mouth began to rise, and he already had an idea in his mind. When I used my spiritual power to activate my spiritual vision just now, I felt that there was still some kind of power hidden in my body. Especially after turning on his spiritual vision, he clearly observed the power hidden in his body and discovered that it was the golden finger he brought from his previous life. The extra ability in his body is the substitute power of JoJo, the anime he watched in his previous life. It seems that before his death, he came to this world with the insect arrow model he purchased, and merged with himself to awaken his avatar. Substitute Insect King Chain. The substitute looks like an arrow with 8 arrows, and the arrow looks like a substitute insect arrow. That is, there is a bug on the surface of the arrow, and there are sharp corners on the back of the bug. Behind the 8 arrows are 8 indestructible chains, which are connected to one's own lifespan. One chain is equivalent to 10 years of one's lifespan. The longer the lifespan, the more chains are condensed, and the arrow at the end of the chain has the ability to absorb life and feed back to itself. The chain itself can be connected to form a contract without resistance from the other person. After the contract, the avatar can be awakened for the other person and become a dependent. After becoming a substitute dependent, life and death are controlled by the contract owner, and the closeness to the contract owner will continue to increase, and they can also sense each other's position or transmit information, fully digest, and other abilities. As for other destructive power, speed, sustainability, range, precision, and growth, I haven't tested it yet and I don't know yet. But having the two heaven-defying abilities of sucking life and contracting with the Insect King is enough. Absorbing life can continuously improve your physique and lifespan, and the Insect King contract allows you to have subordinates with diverse abilities and absolute loyalty. Nangong Yang's idea is to sign a contract with Yotsuya Miko, recruit the first dependent, and see how effective the ability is. If the effect is really like that of spiritual observation, then sooner or later it will be able to control the world. Facing Nangong Yang's words, Yotsuya Miko took out her wallet, took out the only 5 10,000 yen notes in it, and put them on the table. Master Nangong, is this enough? If not, I will work later to pay it back. Yotsuya Miko could only look at Nangong Yang with hopeful and pitiful eyes, and her cheeks felt hot. This was all her pocket money. Just thinking about spending 50,000 yen to deal with 3 ghosts and gods, I didn't have any hope in my heart. I just hoped that my strategy of working to pay off debts and pretending to be pitiful would work. Nangong Yang didn't feel that the 50,000 yen was missing anything as a reward. The high-end apartment I inherited has been collecting rent,